Welcome to the Harvest Series podcast, recorded here in Kaplankaya on the southwestern Aegean coast of Turkey during Harvest, an event gathering hundreds of curious minds. I could interview the most passionate and inspiring speakers, practitioners, and musicians. I hope you will enjoy this episode. What if the key to vitality, clarity, and awakening were already within us, just waiting to be unlocked through ancient wisdom? That's what we'll explore in this episode of the Harvest Series podcast, recorded here in the beautiful Kaplankaya. Our guest today is a globally recognized teacher of Kundalini Yoga and the founder of the Life Force Academy, where he blends yoga, Ayurveda, and astrology to guide personal transformation. Jaidev, welcome to Harvest.
Thank you so much.
What do you want to transmit to people here in Kaplankaya?
Some good cheer, some good happiness, some good sense though also of how to take care of ourselves, and not just how to take care of ourselves we eat good foods, take good herbs, all of these things that we might think about with wellness, but also how to take care of ourselves in our minds in particular. And that starts with just compassion. And first, my feeling is in order for me to have compassion towards the others in my life, first also compassion for my own situation, my own body. It's not easy living in a physical body. It's not always easy living on the earth. It's not always easy in our relationships. And myself, just like everyone else, we sometimes are struggling. And so it's starting with that type of compassion here, and then naturally it starts to extend elsewhere. So you're taking care of our minds in that way is a good starting point.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about yoga, Kundalini, Ayurveda, and even astrology.
All good things.
Yeah, all good things. And you even said we might try to do a little astrology with me. So you're going to wait. I'm super curious.
Yes.
So what is common point between all of this, and how do you create? Is it a methodology or everything you love that you reunited?
Well, the beautiful thing about the yogic system is they're not, when you talk, yoga, Ayurveda is the healing modality that is part of yoga. And even in the yogic system, in the great ancient Indian teachings, astrology, what's called there is called Jyotish, which means the science of light. We call Vedic astrology. It's not separate. And so really what it is, it's one tree. And these are all limbs of the same tree. They all share the same philosophical backbone. They all share the same principles, but you're just looking at it through different lenses. So yoga is actually, it's not really about exercise primarily. Yoga is about spirituality. Yoga is about the awakening of the self, the awakening of what is my real nature. And we all want to know this. We all have already somewhere. I know deep down we all already do know this. We're little children. We all have a sense of what we are, but our mind, as we get older, questioning. We're looking for a sense of purpose. What is my life? We want the relationship. We need the money. We need all the things to live. And so what is this self? So yoga is about experiencing what is one's true nature. That journey, that great discovery that all of us are on. Ayurveda is about using the same principles that yoga uses, but for vitality purposes, longevity purposes, and healing purposes. So for someone who is ill or struggling or suffering from some disease, Ayurveda brings them back to healing. For a person who is relatively healthy, Ayurveda is what keeps you healthy. And so longevity and vitality and beauty and youthfulness, even as we're getting older. And then astrology is, the word is Jyotish, means it's to shine a light on life's circumstances. So it gives you insights into the different seasons of one's life, the different rhythms of one's life, and gives you great perspective on your own inner architecture. And certain people have they're more business oriented and pragmatic and practical. Other people are much more artists. They even don't care anything about business, and you can see all of that in their astrology, and it helps a person understand themselves a little more and also understand others a little more, and this is helpful.
Let's talk about Kundalini.
Okay.
Can you explain what it is and what are the benefits of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the system of Kundalini Yoga that I teach, and we teach at Life Force Academy, it's an exercise system, basically, a system of exercise and meditation practice.
Okay.
That is fantastic. I can't say that it's easy to do, but it's easy for anyone to do. Some of the practices can be, of course, challenging, because anything that is going to really help us is going to have to also apply some challenge. But it's the type of challenge that makes you stronger in both body and in mind. So it's an exercise system that uses different yogic exercises, different breath work practices, mantra practices, all the yoga offers in one system that really helps to bring the mind more easily into its meditative state. And so it's quite nice, I find, for people, because if people feel like they're not good at meditating, which is a common thing you hear people say,
Yeah.
but really there's no such thing as not being good at meditating. There's just people who've worked on it more and people who have worked on it less. None of us are good at the beginning in meditating, because meditating is getting the mind to cooperate. And our minds do not easily cooperate with our wishes. If a mind easily cooperate with, if I wish I want to be happy, and my mind was going to easily cooperate, I would easily be happy. But my mind doesn't cooperate, and I'm not easily happy. Therefore, I have to learn how to get the mind. So it's an exercise system that not only gets you in shape, makes sure the vitality is good, nervous system is strong, endocrine system is balanced, organs get good efficiency, tissue layers get good purification and strength, brings the mind into a type of inner contentment. It's not a contentment that's based on everything in my life is going great. It's a contentment that is underneath that even if it feels like my life is falling apart, I still have this inner sanctuary that I can rely upon. And Kundalini Yoga is amazing for that. And it's just, okay, you move the body this way, push the breath that way, do like this, do like that. All of a sudden, it's almost like the wires connect again. Like there was a short circuit in the system. Now the wires are finally connecting. And you feel once again your confidence come back. You feel once again your vitality come back. And it works pretty quickly.
What role does chanting and mantra play in Kundalini?
Yeah, mantra and chanting. Mantra, one of the definitions of mantra is man is mind. Tarang is like wave. So mantra means wave of the mind. So you're always chanting something anyway. Somebody chanting, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But we're not chanting it in a peaceful manner. We're chanting it in everything is falling apart manner. So what mantra does, and in a certain way, mantra is considered the most important part of yoga practice, because it most directly affects the mind. And so mantra is so effective because if you can use a mantra or use a mantra practice, of which there's plenty in the system of yoga, then it more easily takes the energy of the mind, which is very powerful. The energy of the mind is so powerful, you can say something with the energy of your mind to your significant other and change their whole day. If it's say it's an argument.
It's a bit scary.
Yeah. Or they can say something to you, or you can have a certain thought and it takes you into an anxiety. And if anxiety starts to gain momentum, it's very difficult. If depression hits, and then this energy is very powerful. If you're stuck in a depression, it's very difficult to get out, very difficult to feel any other way when you're in a depression. All of life becomes depressed. So the mind is powerful, and so in the same way, if you can get that same energy of the mind into more of a joyful state, that's also powerful. If you can get that same energy of the mind into from a judgmental critical space into a compassionate space, which is more enjoyable? So at first we think it's like, oh, takes so much austerity, so much work, so much hard work and practice. But it's just what is more desirable? Would I rather feel like envy, or would I rather feel compassion? What is more pleasurable to my body? Compassion and love feels pleasure. Bitterness and passive aggressiveness feels difficult. It's suffering. So it's simple in that way. That's what I mean, compassion for our own predicament.
Yeah.
And if we just be honest with ourselves and not try to put ourselves up a high, then you create sometimes in spirituality especially, we run the risk of creating some facade around how we're supposed to be or how we want to be. And then we create this thing that we have to hold. When we just be honest and real and say, it's like to notice I'm being passive aggressive is to notice my own suffering. So mantra is the most powerful thing in transforming the tendencies of the mind from a more suffering state into a more pleasurable state.
Yeah.
And we all want this.
Before we move on to Ayurveda and astrology, I wanted to ask you something about you, because you're mentioning compassion. So what's your own journey to arrive this? Did you have a need for more compassion for yourself? What's your journey to arrive there?
I always still feel I have a need for more compassion for myself. But as a younger person, I had some difficult health challenges as a teenager. And I grew up in the southeast United States and trying to find my way. And I ran into some health challenges, but I also ran into things that were very much expanding my mind, like psychedelics and these types of things, and trying to figure it out. And so when I ran into some health challenges, that sent me on a journey, because the doctors I was visiting were not able to help me figure it out very well. And to make
was it physical? Or?
Physical, yeah, digestive things, in and out of the hospital. And so this is in teenage years, we're in high school, and so that kind of changed my trajectory of my life, and it took me on a healing journey, which then led me to yoga. And I found yoga. But growing up in the southeastern United States, during that time, there's not very much yoga around. And it's just before the internet, so you really couldn't find it so easily. But synchronistically, I did meet a teacher who invited me to come and try something. And I know it's Kundalini Yoga, first thing I ever tried as a 18-year-old.
Incredible. In the States?
In the States.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And a friend invited me my teacher is coming, and I went to that class. It was just in the backyard on the grass, There wasn't yoga studios in that part of the country at that time. And then that teacher was doing another class the same day at another park in Nashville, Tennessee. And I went to that too. So probably the first day I ever tried any meditation, and I had already been searching, and I would go to the bookstore, and I loved all the books from His Holiness Dalai Lama. And I would read those. And my dad had given me some book by him, I believe. And so I was very much into that, and I loved the Buddha and all of these types of things, just learning. And like so many of us, I was Ram Dass, Be Here Now, and these types of things in that part of the world. And of course, LSD and And so then, though, I went on the first day I ever tried any like real formal meditation or yoga practice was this day of 2 classes of Kundalini Yoga, probably like 5 hours on the first day. And I felt like I was floating for like a week afterwards. It made quite the impression on me. And so I would try to learn to practice some, but that teacher lived a ways away, and he would only come maybe once a month or something. And so every time he would come, I would go to that class. It was just like on a university campus. And after about a year or so, I was the most regular person coming. And he said, I can't come that often. You just can read the practices and lead the other students. You guys can just meet. And so I did that. I would just lead, and we would gather on the campus in the grass and sit around in a circle, and we would do these exercises and
nice.
kriyas.
Okay, so you created a community.
A little something, and I just kind of never stopped. I was actually studying in music and production in the music industry. I've always been a music person, still am a music person. And in Life Force Academy, that's a big part of what we do, is create the music that goes so beautifully with these practices. So anyways, that's how I got started. I was never looking to be a teacher, but that's what happened. And I moved eventually, through yoga, I discovered Ayurveda. And Ayurveda, then at that point in time, there were 2 schools for Ayurveda in the United States. And I moved to California, that was about 25 years ago, to study Ayurveda, and I still now live in that same town. And
so you found your place.
Found a place.
And tell me more about Ayurveda. What are the big principles? And maybe you dived into this. What did you discover, and how did it improve your health also, I guess?
I mean, Ayurveda is the most amazing thing. Its basic principle is nothing's right for everyone, but everything's right for someone. So it's not that this herb or this food is best for everyone. That I have a unique constitution, you have a unique constitution. It's a little different. We can even see it in the horoscope as
cool.
well.
Okay.
So if this person has more fire, you have to give them different things. If this person has more water or earth, you have to give them different things. So it's about being in rhythm with nature. So for instance, when it's the springtime of the year, this is the time they call in Ayurveda, it's called the kapha time of the year. There's three main what they call doshas, and these are the 3 main body types, body-mind types that Ayurveda categorizes everyone in. But they're not just body types. You have the kapha, springtime is the kapha season. This is the elements of earth and water. It's the heavier water. In the spring, the rains come, the soil softens, the little sprouts come up. Then the summer comes, it's the hot time of the year. It's the fire time of the year, or pitta. And then when winter comes in, it's what they call the vata, air and ether time of the year. It's when it's colder. So there's 3 main body types. You have people who are more of a kapha constitution, which these are people who tend to have more stocky body types, more muscle mass. They're the people who are more easily gaining weight. Then you have people who are opposite.
Because they retain water.
Yeah, they retain water, earth water. Yes, they can retain water, but they also just have a tendency towards more growth.
Okay.
Whereas the opposite of that is the vata body type, which is these are people who are naturally thinner. They have longer extremities, longer fingers, longer toes, more like oval-shaped face, whereas the kapha person has more round-shaped face. Kapha person, who is the earth water, have more wider nose bridge, thicker lips, thicker skin, thicker hair, thicker eyebrows. The vata type person is more thinner skin, thinner hair. The kapha type person tends to be more, they're very good at relaxing. It's a very revered body type in India, but in the West we don't revere it as much because everybody's trying to be thin, but that's not natural for all people. Okay. And then we get a little convoluted, so we want the thin body type, but we want the thick kapha lips.
Yeah, exactly.
But Ayurveda's beauty is you're perfect already exactly like you are.
Interesting.
And so those are the 2, so you have those are kind of opposites of each other. The vata person tends more towards anxiousness, worry, and fear. The kapha person, when they go out of balance, tends towards more complacency, melancholy, sluggishness. In the middle, you have pitta, fire.
And that's in the middle. Pitta is in the middle of the middle. 2. Okay.
So more moderate features, but you can tell the pitta person, they often have more intensity about them, more fire, deeper set eyes. They tend to have more defined musculature and more fiery, more athletic, more these types of things. And the pitta person, when they go out of balance, more tends towards anger, tends towards the hotter emotions. Vata is the more colder emotions, kapha is the more heavier emotions. That's when you go out of balance. But here's the thing, this is the basic simplicity of yoga and Ayurveda, is there's 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and then also space. And so earth and water combined together, they tend to mix, that creates more mud, earth and water together. The earth and water together either can give you steadiness, stability, or can give you stagnation and complacency and laziness. Air and ether, you can just think of it as wind. Okay. Wind can either give you anxiousness or worry, or it can give you great enthusiasm and inspiration and energy. Same element, one's less desirable expression, one's more desirable expression. In the middle, you have fire, pitta. You can either have bursts of anger, passive aggressiveness, jealousy, the hotter emotions, or you can have warmth of the heart. You can have luminosity, wisdom, brightness, radiance. These are the more desirable expressions of fire. So what Ayurveda, Tantra, Yoga, Vedic astrology, what they're all helping you do is to get the more desirable expression of your unique makeup, of your unique architecture. You naturally have some fire. Well, you can really work with that fire to get its more desirable expression, as opposed to its less desirable, more suffering expression. So it's like decreasing your liabilities, increasing your assets.
And you've had so many clients or people with whom you're working. Does it work for everyone, or what's the percentage of?
It works for everyone who works with it, and of course, that's what's nice about it. It works for everyone, because if you're working with it in a way that's substantive enough. So it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, but sure, it can work for everyone.
And so people shouldn't eat the same things.
Well, to keep it simple, because that's unrealistic, because you have families, and so the simple way to do that is you eat with the seasons, actually. So when you're in the winter time and it's cold outside, if you live somewhere especially where you get a true winter and it's cold, that's when we eat more warming foods. Like that's when you want soup and higher protein foods and fatty foods. That's why we want to have like our, like holiday season foods like pies and sweet potatoes and roots and higher protein foods, things that and warming things like cinnamon and clove, if you think of those types of things, or curries and warming and milks and things that because wintertime is air and ether, which is cold and light and dry. So you antidote it with warm and heavy and nourishing, give you more warmth and vitality. Then spring comes. If you've been eating those types of food all winter long, you can't wait to have a salad. And now the springs come, the sprouts are coming up. If you were living off nature, this would be more natural. Okay. And so in the springtime, it's heavier. This is when you eat the things that are going to be more purifying. That's why springtime's the best time to do a cleanse. Then in the summertime, it's higher. So springtime's lower fats, lots of purifying foods. In the summertime's higher carbohydrate, lots of fruits, lots of veggies for the long days. And so if you eat by the seasons, that's a great starting point. Then if you learn your constitution, if you're a more Pitta person, more Kapha person, more Vata person, then you modify your diet based on your constitution.
Let's talk about astrology now. So Josefina, who was with us, asked us this question about the difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. Mm-hmm.
So the difference between Vedic astrology and Western, most people are more familiar, at least in the part of the world I live, with what we call Western astrology, which uses what they call the tropical zodiac. So that's what people know. What's your sign? They say you're an Aries, you're a Taurus, you're et cetera, et cetera. Vedic astrology uses what's called, in many parts of the world, they use the sidereal zodiac. In a certain way, it's more accurate in the sense of, if you looked at, for instance, where the sun is in the sky and what constellation it's in. And nowadays we have like apps on our phone, like a like Sky Gaze app, where you can look up and you can point your phone up and you can see where the moon is and you can see what constellation is there.
Yes, yeah.
It won't be accurate with Western astrology, because Western astrology is looking at it from a different perspective. Western astrology is saying that this will get a little bit of like, the mathematics of astrology, but it's interesting just for a quick moment. If the tropical zodiac is agreeing that the first degree of Aries, which is the first constellation in the zodiac, starts on the spring equinox. But actually, the Earth, when it rotates, it does so on its axle is tilted, so it does so in like a wobble. So like a top spins with like a bit of a wobble. And so that's what they call the precession of the equinox. And so every year, at a certain point, both the zodiacs were at the same point.
Okay.
But over time, just a little bit every year, the point of the equinox goes back a little bit of a degree. And so over hundreds of years now, that difference between the Western zodiac and the one that Vedic astrology follows is 24 degrees. So,
okay.
So if somebody thought their sun was in Aries, if it was like at 5 degrees Aries, in Vedic astrology, their sun is actually in Pisces. And this is very confusing to a lot of people if they've thought they're Aries their whole life, and then all of a sudden you're looking, oh, I'm a Pisces. But actually it works out just fine. I know plenty of Western astrologers that are amazing astrologers, and plenty of Vedic astrologers that are amazing astrologers. Slightly different systems. They tend to somehow get to the same thing. But to the materialist mind, that really shakes things up, and like, how can both be true? But you're looking at the same thing from a different perspective.
Okay.
So anyways, also in Vedic astrology, we don't think of the sun first. Whereas you were asked, what's your sign? We're talking about where was the sun when you were born. So if people think of, okay, I'm a Taurus, that means the sun was in the constellation of Taurus when you were born.
Yeah.
The backdrop of the sun was the constellation of Taurus. But everybody born in that month was in the constellation of Taurus, so it's not so unique. Whereas where you start with in Vedic astrology is what is the rising sign? What is the ascendant? So that means if somebody, when you were born, for instance, if somebody got a telescope out, when were you born? At what time? Was that 11:30 p.m.?
Yes.
11:30 p.m. at night. If somebody would look at the point of the eastern horizon, that's the point on that day where the sun would rise, the eastern horizon. If somebody would have looked at that moment, they would have seen that the constellation Libra was on the eastern horizon. So that means in Vedic astrology, your what they call your lagna, the constellation that was tied to the point of the eastern horizon, your auspicious moment was Libra. So we would think of you as a Libra and as a starting point, not only because you're multifaceted just like all of us are. And Libra is ruled by Venus. So Libra is a Venus constellation, and it's a relational constellation. It's something that loves to connect with people. Also has to do with law. It has the balances of justice, of good and bad. And so there's certain themes with each constellation. But the first thing I think with Libra is relational. Okay. Relationships are important. And then you look at we don't jump to where was the sun, but we jump to where is Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Libra. Each of the planets rules a feminine constellation and a masculine constellation. So Venus rules both Libra and Taurus. So Libra is ruled by Venus. So in your chart, then we would look at where is Venus in your chart. And Venus in your chart is in Pisces. So not only are you a Libran with this kind of relationship orientation towards your life and to how your nervous system and mind is wired and what you're good at and both, these things show us both what our strengths are, and also I think sometimes even more importantly, where are our blind spots. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite part of astrology.
Wow.
And often you'll find, and almost always you'll find, where is somebody's blind spots is also the same place as where are their strengths. What are their talents? What are you naturally so good at? That's also where we can find the blind spots. Okay,
it would mean, for example, if I'm good at relationship, my blind spot would be to look at myself, for example. Let
me take myself as an example. So as a Capricorn ascendant, so if somebody would look at the eastern horizon when I was born, they would find the constellation of Capricorn. So a Capricorn person is pragmatic, tends to be ambitious. These are just tendencies. It doesn't mean you're stuck this way, but it's our tendencies. Wow. Yeah. I'll always be pragmatic, I'll always be practical. I can make things happen. I can get things done. That gets me a long way in life. It might help me very much in things like business, in things like work. But if you have always this orientation in life, that orientation may be at home in the relationship isn't going to work as well always. Okay. So always thinking pragmatic, always thinking practical, always thinking of how to get something done, never learning how to relax, never learning how to chill. So it's in there somewhere. It doesn't mean that your blind spot will be in relationship. In fact, your skills and your kind of orientation and part of your superpower is in relationship. And if you put Venus, in your case, in Pisces, every planet has a place in the sky where it's most strong, which they call exaltation, and also a point in the sky where it's more weak, what they call debilitation. Debilitation sounds way worse than it is. Exaltation sounds way better than it is. Because if you have a lot of strong planets, it gives you a strong sense of self, but that also can, in some cases, not always, can create a very strong sense of ego. Strong sense of ego can be very good and helpful. It can make you get you very far in life. But sometimes that also gives you blind spots. So if people are very strong in a certain way of life, you start to rely on that. But later in life, you rely on things certain ways, it'll start to trip you up.
A last question before we stop. Usually we know we are our first contact with astrology is in the magazine where it's about matchmaking between the signs. Do you use it? Is it something real? Like for example, people in Venus should match with someone in love, in relationship, or in friendship?
I don't know. If you are in a relationship, which everybody's in some relationship, it can be helpful to understand your relationship. I personally don't use astrology to decide who I would be in a relationship with, and I like to let love do that. But it can help you to, absolutely, relationship compatibility is a real thing that you can look at in astrology, but it's not as simple as you see in like a magazine or a newspaper where it's like, oh, the Gemini shouldn't be with the No, it's much more sophisticated than that. But I think it's helpful, especially if you're in the relationship, to understand the other person. Yeah. And for them to understand you. It's like, well, that's because they're a Leo, They always want the attention on themselves. It's not a bad thing. But they need it, and they want it, and they desire it. And they're like the Leo, they're like the sunshine. They have a natural feeling that their sun should be shining. And so if you're with somebody where their sun is in Leo, their ascendant is Leo, they need to be exalted in a certain way. They need to be shown that they are queenly or kingly. And if you love them, why wouldn't you want them to feel that? And so those types of things, it's because they always get this way. Well, this because their ascendant is Virgo, whatever. It just gives you understanding. They... always knowing everything. Well, their Jupiter is in Sagittarius. Of course, they're going to know everything. And so, of course, on their side, it would be good if they could refine it a little bit, and get into a more healthy expression of that. On our side, as the partner, it helps us to be more understanding.
Yeah, totally.
We can't always be asking them to change, but we can always be more understanding.
Yeah.
And then we can refine ourselves.
It's beautiful.
That's how I look at it. Yeah.
I've got a very last question, but
okay.
It seems important for me.
Yeah.
We are in a very tense world
yes.
right now with a lot of conflicts
yes.
that could escalate or not.
Sure.
And how do you put this in context with maybe astrology?
Well, I don't spend a lot of time on this, but this is what they call mundane astrology, is that people look at the astrological charts for countries and for the leaders of those countries, like a Donald Trump who's born on an eclipse and these types of interesting things versus, maybe looking at Xi Jinping and the China's, and they look at them against, and you can see lots of patterns. I don't tend to spend a lot of time with that because I don't like to stay in that, but I have astrologer teachers who do, and I'll listen to them and get
what do they say then?
About what? About what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, let me show. Here's an interesting thing. In Vedic astrology, there's this idea called dashas, which are periods. So, for instance, wherever the moon is when a person is born determines what period of life that you're in. It's a little different for everyone. It's because based on where the moon is at the time that you're born, and the moon can be in one of 27 different what they call nakshatras or lunar mansions. I don't mean to make it too complicated, but giving a little bit of background for people to know that there's some substance here. And so when you're born, you might begin in a Jupiter period. And then if you look at where's Jupiter in that person's chart, and it'll give you some insight. Generally, Jupiter period is going to be more expansive for their life, tend to be more prosperous, generally speaking. If you're in a Saturn period, there's going to be more harder work. There's going to be some hard, difficult lessons that one has to learn. But if they do it well, it'll be good for them. and so forth and so on. The opposite of what we're talking about, Ketu, the south node of the moon, the only time you see Rahu and Ketu, they're the two what they call in Vedic astrology Chayagraha, shadow planets. They're the north node and the south node of the ecliptic. The only time you see them is during an eclipse. And so if you see the shadow of the moon, a Ketu or Rahu. Okay, the Rahu's the head of the dragon, Ketu's the tail of the dragon. All right, so you have the two luminaries, sun and moon. Then you have the 5 planets, which are Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus. Okay, that's 7. And to make 9, these are the visible planets. We don't use the further out, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune in Vedic astrology typically. So the visible ones you can see with the naked eye. Then there's 2 more. There's 9, and the two are the shadow ones, Rahu and Ketu. So Ketu, we talked about a little bit. Rahu is the other one, and Rahu is like a head with no body, and it tends to be chaotic, and it tends to be more challenging. And Rahu's like a party animal. Rahu is very explorative, but if you're, for instance, in a Rahu time of life as a young person, the parents are going to be stressed out a little bit. That person is going to be a little more on a wild side in that time of life. You can look at the birth chart for a country. Where I live, the United States entered its Rahu period in like 2016, right when Donald Trump comes into presidency. That's an 18-year period for the United States, so we have a little ways to go. And so you can see the energies and the quality. This is just one little example. Energies are the qualities, while China is kind of rising up, becoming very strong. The United States going through major transformations and things like very wonky, a little chaotic, very chaotic, and it's total identity crisis for the United States, where I'm just speaking from where I live. So it's interesting. It can give you perspectives that allows you to kind of step back away from it, from all of the divisiveness. And it doesn't mean you don't still have your opinions and your convictions on what you stand for and what you believe in, and what is good and what is true and what is real, but it gives you this perspective on the energetic waves that are present. And helps you, give you some wisdom to be able to surf those waves with more grace.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Harvest Series podcast recorded in Kaplanskaya. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to have some more.